payment plan. Chase. Hey y'all, if you're new here, I'm Christine. Welcome to my channel. If you're not new here, hey woo, I see you coming back. As you can see from the title, today's video is going to be a little different than the other content on my channel. We're just kind of all over the place, but that's okay. Some of you guys may not know this, but I did do like a 20 facts about me. I'll link it up in the corner. I was actually sitting thinking the other day, and I moved out of the house when I was 18. I went to college, I got my degree, and there was just a lot of things along the way that I had to figure out for myself. There's a lot of things that I just had to learn the hard way. And there's so many young people out here nowadays who have everything at their fingertips but don't know how to utilize a lot of things, a lot of resources. So I want to start a segment on my channel that's going to be things I wish I would have known in my early 20s. So whether that be getting my first apartment, buying my first car, applying to college, how to get into college, what I need to know before I go to college, what I need to know before I move on my own, what I need to know before I get my first loan, before I apply for my first credit card. All of these things I think are really important, and I didn't know when I was in my early 20s. I didn't have, anybody to tell me how to go about it or when to go about it or the questions that I needed to ask. And I do have a baby sister. I call her a baby. She's gonna be 21 like next month, but she doesn't know a lot of things either as far as getting a car, getting her first apartment, and all these things. I figured if she doesn't know, there's probably a lot of you guys that are around the same age as her that don't know where to start or where to go or how to go about things. I want to do something like this at least once a month on my channel, just to put information out there. You guys know that my channel is a lot of me, a lot of my girls, but it is something that I want to use as a platform to help other people like me. I didn't have help when I was younger, so I was a first-time generation college student. I didn't have, a bunch of friends who had, were in the same boat as me. Everybody kind of had families with money, especially going to a private school. They always had somebody to fall back on, which I never really had. Of course, my family is great and I love them with my entire soul and my entire being, and it's not their fault that they didn't know these things either. Of course, if they did, I could always ask questions. It just was my situation and I tried to make the best out of it. So I learned a few things the hard ways, but hopefully this video will help you so you don't have to do that. So for today's video, for the first introduction to this video, I want to talk about things you should know before you get your first apartment, or things you should know before you move out of your parents' house, or your grandparents' house, or your aunt's house, or your uncle's house, or your two mom's house, or your two dad's house. I just think that these things that I'm gonna cover are really important and you might not think about. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave. Pause this video and like if you wanna see more videos like this, or if you need help in these areas. So yeah, let's jump into it. So I have a list in front of me and I'm going to do my very best. A lot of it's going to be recollection and things that I experienced. Also, these are in no particular order. They're all very important. They all lead into, making a lifestyle for yourself and, making a living for yourself and all that stuff. So all of it is important. They're in no particular order. These are things that were relevant to me when I was in my early 20s. So number one, first of all, I want to talk about roommates. And roommates are great. It's fun to live with a friend. It's fun to live with your best friend. It's fun to live with your coworkers. All of these things are great. It's a good way for you in your early years to kind of move out on your own, but not completely be out on your own. You might be scared to live by yourself. You might not want the burden of paying for everything by yourself. So roommates are great. I love roommates. I've had 2 roommates. Yeah, I've had 2 roommates and everything was really great. One thing that I would recommend to you is if you don't know them very well, or even if you do know them very well and they're very responsible, I would look into getting something like college apartments. So with college apartments, they have 2, 3, 4 bedroom apartments or room apartments that you and your friends can rent, but you're all on separate leases. So this is good because in case there's a falling out between any of you, in case, somebody is not as responsible as the rest of you, in case anything like that happens, their lack of responsibility doesn't fall on you. So they're responsible for their own lease. They're responsible for their own bills. but you are able to share the same space. You are able to still have the luxury of paying less money than you would if you were by yourself. You're able to split costs, but just in case, you know, they're going through a hard time, or, you know, like I said, there is a falling out between the two of you and they decide to leave, or they just can't afford it anymore and they have to leave, then the burden is not put on you. You're not responsible for their half of the rent at that point. You're not responsible for their half of the bills at that point, because the college apartment will put somebody else in their unit or rent out their unit, or that unit will just be empty. So I did live in college apartments over by UTSA. I loved it there. It was great. So the more rooms that you have, the less your rent is going to be. So if you're in a 4-bedroom apartment, your rent's gonna be about $200-300. If you're in a 3-bedroom apartment, your rent's gonna be about $400. If you're in a 2-bedroom apartment, I was in a 2-bedroom apartment and my rent was $500. But most of my stay, most of the time that I lived there, I didn't have a roommate. So I was only paying $500 to live in this unit, and I was by myself, and it was 2-bedroom, 2-bath. They lock the other units. You're not supposed to have access to them, but I mean, you're the only person in there. So yeah, that's one thing to consider is college living, college apartments. If you don't have a lot of friends, or you're looking to make friends, or you just can't afford anything else, I would still definitely look into it. I know it's kind of risky living with other people because you don't know their lifestyle, but the college apartments are really, their rules are pretty strict as far as where you can and can't be and what you can and can't have and things like that. So there's really no, I mean, I wouldn't be scared about moving in with people you don't know, because y'all are all. Oh, also, you don't have to be in college to live there. So they're mostly located near college campuses, UTSA, A&M San Antonio, things like that. They are mostly around those areas, but you do not have to be enrolled in college to move in. You don't have to have like a college ID or anything like that. You can just move in. But I was in college when I lived there. That's how I found out about it. Tip number 2, if you're not renting a college apartment and you're just renting an apartment, most of the apartment complexes are going to require that you make 3 times your income. So as a nanny, my income wasn't grand. So my apartment that I lived in, I had to be able to show that I made 3 times the amount of rent. So that means at the college apartment that I lived in, my rent was like 5 something. So I had to make 3 times that. Let's just say 500, because y'all know I'm not good at math. Let's say my rent is 500. That means each month I have to make at least $1,500 to qualify to live there. And that's anywhere. Most places, the standard is 3 times the rent. If you're renting something that's $1,000, you have to make at least $3,000 that month to be able for them to feel comfortable leasing it to you. So that's one thing to think about. Some people don't know that. Some people, you know, don't have any idea of these things, so that's important. Number 3, leading into that, if you don't make 3 times the amount of rent that's due, most places, most apartments will allow you to have a cosigner. So same like a car, like a loan, anything like that, they will just ask for the other person's information, social, where they work, how much they make, and if the two of you combined make enough money, then they will allow you to move in. Or if just that one person's income allows you to move in, you can do that as well. A lot of the times when I was younger, I did need a cosigner, not because I wasn't responsible, and I mean, I could afford my bills. If I was broke after my bills were paid, then I was just broke and your girl was struggling. But they do want you to have a cosigner. That way, if I wasn't able to make my rent, they know that somebody in my life would. That's really all the cosigner is to make sure that you have somebody to fall back on just in case you can't, you know, pay your bills. So most apartments will allow you to have a cosigner, but with your cosigner, it is important that they meet all of the same regulations as far as 3 times rent. And into my next one, number 4, they also will require that you and the cosigner they're going to check your rental history. So with that, that means that they're going to see if you've lived at any other apartments, if you've lived at any other houses. They're going to contact those apartments and those house owners or wherever it was that you lived before to see what kind of tenant you are. So if you were late on your rent, if you were loud, if you had illegal pets, these kinds of things. That's what they're looking for when they ask you for your renter's history. So don't be surprised when you go apply for an apartment and you don't have renter's history and they deny you, because they don't know that they can trust you. They don't know who they're leasing to, that kind of stuff. renter's history is important, but I was able to get my first apartment without it. You never really know the apartments that you're applying to, what they're going to require. So it's always good to ask before you go in. You can even call and tell them, hey, I'm interested in an apartment. What are your requirements? What are you looking for? You can also let them know, hey, I don't have renter's history. Is there anything you'll take instead? Or is that okay? Is that a problem that I don't have renter's history? So yeah, there's ways around it, but these are just the things that you should expect. Another thing is, so if you have been in a situation, you had an apartment, you were on the lease, your friend left, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your cousin, whoever you were living with left, and you have a broken lease, or you had to leave. You just had to break your lease for whatever reason. You had to break your lease. Once you have a broken lease on your rental history, it's really hard to find something else to get into. Most places will accept you if you have a broken lease, but you have to show proof that you're paying towards that broken lease. So you have to have some sort of payment plan saying, I pay this amount of money to them, because when you do have a broken lease, you're going to have a balance on that lease. So you have to show that you're paying towards that balance to show that, you know, you're trying to make it right. If you have proof of that, 9 times out of 10, they're going to rent to you. They're going to allow you to live there, but it is something that you have to do just in case you cross that bridge, or that is your circumstance. Don't worry, you just have to show proof. Next, another good question to ask is what your grace period is after your rent is due. So sometimes I would even forget to ask this question. Every apartment is different. Some people give you time. Some people give you like 5 days after the rent is due. But here at these apartments that we rent here, our rent is due no later than 2 days. And by the 3rd day, you're charged a late fee. No matter what reason it is that you're late, these apartments here don't give you any kind of leeway. One time I accidentally pulled it out of the wrong bank account, or wrote the check out with the wrong checkbook, and it didn't go through. And so then we were in a predicament and we were out of town, so we got charged late fees. I had to reach out to management and they wouldn't take off my late fees. It was all this drama. But yeah, always know what your grace period is after your rent is due. Also, along with that, it's good to know how you can pay your rent. So I know nowadays things are a little different. Back in the day, you just used to drop your payment off in the office and that was it. And I believe you can still do that, except now that coronavirus is happening, you can't do that anymore. So most of the time, I shouldn't even say that because I don't know. But for me, we pay our rent online. There's like a portal you go into, you make your account, everything you do with the apartment is through that portal. You can do like service requests, and if something's broken, you go on there, you let them know, they'll come by and fix it. Also, when you're doing that, it's good to know how you can pay your rent. So sometimes there's like a fee that they charge you by using the online thing. If you use a debit card, you have to use a credit card, you have to use a check. Just make sure you know how they like you to pay your rent and the options that you have in order to do that. That way you know ahead of time if you need to set up, you know, a certain account or what you need in order to make it easy for you, that you're not behind and you don't, you know, wind up racking up all of these late fees that you can't afford. Because when you're in your early 20s, finances that you don't account for are scary. You don't ever want to be in a situation where you owe somebody $200, $300, $400 more than you know you're allowed. So it's very important to know what you have to pay for and not have to worry about late fees and things like that. So it's a good way to get yourself set up for success later. Okay, so another good question to ask is your utilities. How do the utilities work at the apartment? Again, every apartment is different. Some places the utilities are included. Gas, water, electric, all of that is included in the rent. A lot of them are not like that though. A lot of them do include the water, but like electric and cable and that stuff is extra. And it's up to you to get that on your own. As far as getting electric and all that stuff, you have to go through your electric company in the town that you live in or whoever services your area. You have to set up your account through them, and that's a whole different video. But for utilities, as far as the apartment complex goes, some utilities, most of them include the water in your rent, but it is important to know how that water is broken, like how your bill is accumulated. So the first apartment that I lived in, there was separate buildings, and in each building, they would take the water usage for that building and then divide it amongst how many units were in that building. And if you were in a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment, you would be paying a bigger percentage than somebody who was in a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment. So that didn't seem very fair to me because I was in a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment, but I was living by myself. But I was still having to pay more than somebody who was in a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, because even if they had 2 or 3 people living in that 1-bedroom apartment and they were using more water, I would still have to be paying more because I was in a bigger unit. So, I mean, it is what it is. At the end of the day, you can't do anything about it, but it's good to know how your utilities are split up, or if you're going to be paying for just your usage. It's just something good to ask. Next, extra fees. Another thing to anticipate when you're looking for your first apartment and you're calculating what you can and can't afford is extra fees. So extra fees that might be included in your apartment, things such as, like I said, water, things like electric, things like cable might be included in your rent. We here at this apartment have a trash service. Sunday through Thursday, the trash people, they come around door to door and they pick up your trash and they take it. That is an extra fee that we have that is included in our rent. Pest control. Pest control is another thing that's included in our rent. Here where we're at, we have a bunch of tiny spiders. And if we don't get pest control when they're supposed to come, then we just see more spiders. And I don't mind, but Horace isn't a big fan of spiders. But yeah, pest control is something else that might be included, that might be an additional fee on top of your rent. So say that your base rent, you're renting an apartment and they're advertising it that it's $700 a month. Just keep in mind that can vary $50 to $100 depending on extra fees and taxes, and however you pay your rent, there may be an extra fee for that too. So it's important to know the extra fees that are included in applying for this apartment, and always ask that up front. Usually our water is an extra fee, but it's never, it usually stays around the same amount. So you might see your rent fluctuate by a couple of dollars, but again, when you're 20, those couple of dollars really make a difference. So that's just something to consider. The last thing that I'm going to cover is your cost of living outside of your rent. So for most of us, our rent is a big portion of our income, but you also need to consider your car payment, your insurance for your car payment, your electric, your water, your cable, your Wi-Fi. So some of these things you can go without. Like for years, I didn't have cable in my apartment just because I simply couldn't afford it. And nowadays everything is streaming. When I was in my early 20s, it wasn't, as popular as it is now to stream things. Of course, I don't even think I had Netflix. So I would just chill in my apartment in the silence by myself or play some music. But just think about what you can cut out of your life, what extra necessities you truly don't need, like cable. Most of us nowadays do need Wi-Fi. Some apartments do come with that. So I know the college apartment that I lived in had Wi-Fi included in the extra fees. So that was awesome, as well as like utilities. So like laundry, where your laundry room is, if you'll have a washer and dryer in your unit. All of these things are things to consider when applying for different apartments. And your groceries also are important. I would recommend making a list and sticking to your list, because again, when you're in your early 20s, your income is limited, and there's not, especially if you're in college and you're doing other things with your time other than just working full time. So all of these things are really important when looking for an apartment, as well as the last thing that I think is really important is your security. So if you're going to be living by yourself, I would highly suggest looking into something with a gate. With a gate code. No, it's not always 100%, like it's not always guaranteed that that's going to be safe, but it is a lot safer than not having one. Also, talk to your family, talk to anybody who's lived in the city, the town for a long time, and ask them, where the safest place to be is. For me, my grandpa would never let me live by myself, like inside the 410 loop. Anytime he was like, no, you can't live there. No, you can't live there. So it's good to know your areas and where you're at and your surroundings. Also, if you're a college student, try to find something close to your school or to your work, or things that are readily available to you. I know sometimes it's a lot cheaper to live like outside of the city limits, and if you have a reliable car and you can do that, then absolutely do that. But if you can't because you don't have a car, or you're on your bike or things like that, yeah, it's just something to consider. It's really important to know your surroundings and what is readily available to you in your surroundings. So yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. If you have anything to add to this, if you were once a struggling college student or struggling in your early 20s trying to get your life figured out, leave down in the comment section down below anything that you think would be helpful for other people to know. Again, it's something I want to do on my channel just to help people who were in a situation like me, who didn't really have, didn't really know what to do or where to go or who to talk to. So this is just stuff I want to put out onto the internet. If it can help anybody, that's always the goal. If that is you, if this video is for you and you're watching, hi, you're going to be fine. You're going to do great. You're going to crush all your dreams. You might be struggling now. You might be hungry now eating ramen noodles, but I promise you all of your hard work is going to pay off. If there's anything you want to know more about, any video suggestions that you're curious about, leave them down in the comment section down below. Again, you can always reach out to me via DM or things like that on my socials. I'm always up to talking to anybody who needs help. I guess that's all for today's video. For those of you who this is not the content that you subscribed for, I'm so sorry, but I just really think that it's important for our young adults to know that it's okay to not have it all together. It's okay to not know where to go, and it's important to try to find answers. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave. The bell notification next to that lets you know when I upload a new video, and you don't have to wait for me to post it on social media. If you do wait, or you don't know how to use the button, or it's just not working, don't worry. I will always let you guys know when my videos go live on my socials. These are my socials. This is where you can find me on the internet, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye. Hey y'all. Hey y'all. Hey y'all. Hey y'all! Something in my eye. If you see any wiggling down here, Chase is here. Chase is always here. Apartment 2. Hey! I just had something in my head and now I lost it. Oh. Chase, he's like gnawing at my fingers. Go lay down. He's exited the building. Go lay down. Go. Excuse me.